How's it going, guys? CrackedRack here, and today I'm going to be reporting on Chris Chan yet again. Now, if you know me or have known of me, you'd know that for the last 2 or so years, I've been heavily reporting on lolcows and lolcow activity. I did take a huge hiatus a while back from lolcows because when being a journalist on this kind of stuff, things get extremely intense extremely quickly, and I just couldn't take it at the time, but after getting some education on the matter, I have grown a much thicker skin. But a lot of journalists actually take a hiatus, especially in the lolcow sphere. I can name 5 different lolcow journalists who abandon ship because of how crazy it gets. I mean, just imagine it. You have millions of crazy people gossiping about this and that on completely uncensored websites and trying to get information on you and wanting attention more badly than everybody else. It's a chaotic nightmare. However, I thought I'd give my modern, updated takes on Chris Chan, as it's been a long time since I ever talked about him. I did make a few funny meme videos about him like half a year ago, but it's been quite a long time since I analyzed a single thing about him. So I figured why not delve into the classics and discuss my modern, updated take on Chris. My modern, updated take on Chris is as follows. I find Barney the dinosaur more funny, unironically, than I find Chris now. Chris Chan used to be something I was obsessed with as a kid. I used to think he was the funniest, most interesting, eccentric weirdo human being on the planet as a young teenager back in the 2010s. I thought he was the greatest discovery ever, and for years I would participate in gossip forums and drama forums discussing him. I remember when I was 15 years old staying up all night and reading the Chris Chan wiki on my PlayStation Vita. Those were good times. However, as time progressed, I started finding Chris Chan really revolting and annoying. I don't know if it's because he became so popular and known and discussed, and because his life started meshing with my life because of his drama and gossip and garbage, but I just started really not finding him entertaining at all, and more just like a staple of the internet. You know how like PewDiePie is the most obvious gaming YouTuber that comes to your head? Chris Chan at this point is just the most obvious, infamous internet figure, and it's really lost its charm. At this point, I think it's completely dead. I don't even think it should have a scene based around it anymore. It's just obnoxious. Though that's just my opinion, which I know is irrelevant. The real nail in the coffin for my interest in Chris started when I started making journalistic reports on Chris for a few years, because I figured since I knew so much about his life, I might as well utilize some of my time to discuss what I know about him, and that really burned me out. And if I wasn't burned out before I am now, then I got into a ton of drama revolving Chris Chan that actually negatively affected my real life and real life friendships, and I just got so tired of him I could vomit seeing his face. So my modern take, first of all, is that Chris Chan is not only not funny, but extremely overplayed, and I don't even understand why so many people are still interested with him. I have worked with the mentally disabled before, as have many people I know, and there are millions, if not billions, of Chris Chans out there. There are a lot of angry, overweight, mid-20s to early 30s men out there who are virgins, have mental disorders, and live in a disgusting, horrifying way that is more than completely illegal. And after being exposed to a lot of that over the years, I've come to realize how unfunny Chris is. I don't even see a special lolcow anymore. I just see a fat, mentally ill, transgender person who shouldn't have ever had access to the internet and is not special at all, other than maybe a few crazy things he did here and there. In fact, I've been to a few anime conventions before, and let me just say, Chris Chans are absolutely everywhere. My other take on him and his crimes are that he should definitely be on a sex offender registry. For sure. But my only problem with that is that he's probably going to get brutally assaulted everywhere he goes if this is the case, because a lot of people are stupid. They're just stupid, they're ignorant, they're violent, they're angry, they're uneducated on the subject. I don't like street justice. I don't like vigilantism, okay? I think the justice system takes care of things pretty well most of the time with a few major hiccups here and there, but I think it's decent. And I just don't think it's fair if he maybe got put on the registry. I think a much more suitable treatment would probably be to hospitalize him for probably the rest of his life. Chris Chan is a bad person, sure, and he does deserve similar punishment that anyone else would get, but I feel like people are way too unempathetic about Chris Chan to an absurd degree, and I get it. He's a horrible, disgusting piece of garbage, and he knows a lot of what he's doing. but they don't take into consideration his extreme mental illnesses. And I see a lot of people do that. A lot of people completely disregard someone's mental illness and refer to it as basically witchcraft pseudoscience and say it's basically just a fancy excuse. But I hate when people state that or do that because it's extremely ignorant. When someone mentions they have a mental illness after doing something horrific, they are not stating that as an excuse to get out of what's happening. I mean, sure, there's definitely an element of that. Mentally ill people are just as bad of people as anybody else, if not far more so. But issues like this require thinking outside of black and white in the box thinking. In this case, the mental illness is not an excuse but a descriptor for why their flawed brain chemistry may make them falsely believe that their behaviors are acceptable. Mentally ill people do not have the brain structure and emotional tools necessary that everyone else have. They are not neurotypical. Whereas you might think it's best to drive 35 miles per hour when the speed limit is 60 in the snow because the roads are icy and you don't want to cause an accident, a mentally ill person, for example, a severely bipolar person, may not consider the consequences and drive at 70 miles per hour because they believe it will get them to where they need to go quicker, and that's all that matters. Obviously, this is not comparable at all to what Chris Chan has done, but you get the idea. Mental illness is a serious issue, and to deny mental illness or deny its existence or to justify it as an excuse is extremely harmful to society at large and will create more problems than solve. Anyway, now we get into the final stretch of my opinions on Chris. What do I think of his past behavior? I honestly have a bit of a new perspective on it. I used to think that Chris was never trolling, and that he was completely incapable of trolling or doing things on purpose to garner attention. However, looking back, I don't believe this at all, and I do think Chris is maybe 40 or 50% capable of doing things on purpose for attention. This is particularly obvious to me because, from what I know about him, he wasn't given attention as a child really at all. For example, he used to be locked in a closet for hours at a time due to his autism, so perhaps, at least my theory, is that even though he is severely autistic, he is well aware of how fringe he is to society, and he amps it up for attention, and that he knows what he's doing most of the time. So yeah, overall, Chris is not funny at all. He's extremely overplayed and tiring, and I wish people would stop acting as if he's so hilarious. It seems most people are just now in the last year or so catching on to Chris's existence, and are laughing at stuff from like 2012 or 2011, and acting like stuff from 2011 is new or interesting or funny. Not only this, he's also heavily aware of his own behavior and amps it up, and he is a sex offender for what he did. Though, even though he's a creepy monster, he absolutely should be treated with a base level of understanding due to his limited mental performance. Anyway, that's all.